Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to speak briefly to your conference. My name is Nick Herbert. I'm the MP for Arundel and South Downs, which is a rural constituency in West Sussex. It's one of the most beautiful constituencies in England. Half of it is covered by the South Downs National Park, and the other half faces very significant development pressure, partly because of that important landscape designation and, of course, the demand for new housing in the southeast. And planning is easily the biggest issue in my constituency and has been since I was elected some 10 years ago. I am a strong supporter of the policy of neighbourhood planning, which I think is beginning to yield real results locally and nationally. And I think, for all the reasons that have been set out, is a powerful expression of the ability to give communities real power. And that if you actually genuinely hand power down to communities, you can create a new set of incentives. And as we debate many other ways in which we want to create a new localism, I think it's important to use this as an exemplar, that the success of neighbourhood planning rests on the fact that communities can see that it really can make a difference in their communities, and that we ask people to take responsibility, true responsibility for decisions. This is not a meaningless or phony consultation. It really does put people in charge. I've had 4 successful neighbourhood plans so far put through by referendum. More are underway. All of them voted through overwhelmingly, and they've achieved the kinds of things that have been set out this morning. So Arundel, the first, one of the earliest ones to be adopted in the country, the first in Sussex, was able to designate a green space that had been under threat from development and protect that, and at the same time target a brownfield site which are in short supply in my constituency for development. That was a site that developers weren't as keen to develop and are now looking at because they have to, and it put the community back in charge. They were able to reclaim control of the space that they wanted to. And similarly, Curdford, the second very small village in my parish, in my constituency, a rural parish just outside the national park, has in the centre of the village some 120 houses, had always seen speculative development as a huge threat, and suddenly has put through a neighbourhood plan where they have asked for 50 new houses in such a small community. And I think it does show the way in which attitudes can change. I want, though, to talk about some of the things I think we need to do if we want to improve and accelerate this really good policy. First of all, I think we need to lift the burden insofar as we possibly can that we are placing on communities in putting through these neighbourhood plans. It is a huge burden on volunteers, and if we can provide more external support and funding through various sources, that would be great. But the other side of the coin is that we can make neighbourhood plans easier to put in place. There is a certain amount of bureaucracy creeping into them, a great deal of prescription when it comes to the inspection of the plans, and a tendency by interest groups to want to load requirements onto the neighbourhood plans, whether it's in good design or all sorts of other things that we demand should be in the plans. Please, let's minimise this. Let's trust the communities. Let's make sure that the prescription is absolutely minimal. And if we do that, perhaps we could also speed up the plans and get them through more quickly. The process is an additional burden on communities because it takes some time, a process sometimes of years. And if we want to get these plans through, I think we need both to lift the burden and speed them up, and recognise that the centre always has a tendency to over-prescribe. And do we really need as much process around these plans as we are putting in at the moment? The last thing I'd like to say is a bit more controversial. The one thing that has affected public support for plans in my constituency and affected it detrimentally has been the tendency of speculative developers to charge in and try and achieve their planning permissions before the neighbourhood plan is put in place. They know that this is an opportunity, but it's immensely undermining of the community interest in getting the plans through. And this has just happened in one parish in my constituency, where last week the inspectorate, in 2 separate decisions, upheld housing for 400 houses in a parish. And now, it is one thing if the local authority decides that there needs to be a strategic allocation. That is their democratic right, albeit that the local community might not like it. It is another thing where this is happening by speculative development upheld on appeal or allowed because the local authority is fearful of losing at appeal. And you should hear what the parish councillors are saying now about their attitude to the neighbourhood planning process that they've been engaged in for 3 years. They're saying it was pointless, a waste of time, what on earth were they doing? They're really dispirited as a consequence of this decision. And so I would suggest, there was helpful guidance last year that said that weight could be given to emerging neighbourhood plans. I'm grateful to the government for that. The government has recognised that this is a problem and undertook to issue new guidance in a debate that we had in the Commons a couple of weeks ago about this issue, and I'm looking forward to that coming down from the Minister. But I think there is a strong case now, given the known success of this policy. If we want to accelerate it, I think we should be rewarding local areas as well as incentivising them. And I think that we should say that where they are embarked on a process of neighbourhood planning, and it's going forward to a proper timetable, from the point at which they embark on it, not at some point halfway through or towards the end of the process, these speculative applications should not be allowed, or at least that there should be a very strong presumption against them. If they go off the timetable, if they're not serious about the neighbourhood plan, then that can be reversed. But we must not punish communities who are doing the right thing. I don't want to detract, however, from what I said at the beginning. This is a really great policy. It's localism in action. In a short space of time, we've made a huge difference to these communities by putting them in charge, and I want to see it flourish further. Thank you.